8 times in the Quran. And the word Quran is derived from Iqra. Ilmu is mentioned 854 times in the Quran. And the word akalu, or intellect, is mentioned 49 times, stressing the importance of an enlightened society that uses conscience and reasoning instead of restrictive and intrusive laws. Islam is inspiration, not intimidation. So what is Motion 355? It's the bill to amend Akta Mahkamah Syariah Bidang Kuasa Jenayah 1965, increasing the limitations of the Sharia Criminal Court's jurisdiction from 3 years imprisonment to 30 years imprisonment, from 5,000 ringgit to 100,000 ringgit fine, from 6 lashes to 100 lashes as administered in accordance with Sharia criminal laws. So 355 sets the had, limits the perimeters and boundaries of what punishments can be implemented against Muslims. But because religion falls under the state's purview, under the state list, and cannot be in conflict with the federal laws, Sharia criminal offences that have already been covered by the penal code cannot be usurped by the state. I ask you to read your respective state's Sharia Criminal Offences Enactment or Act. In Wilayah, it's called Akta Kesalahan Jenayah Syariah Wilayah Persekutuan 1997. In Selangor, it's called Enactment Jenayah Syariah Selangor Nombor 9 Tahun 1995. Each state has its own Sharia criminal laws. In 1993, Kelantan attempted to implement hudud, followed by Terengganu. Both hudud enactments were different. It's territorial. In 2015, the Kelantan Assembly passed a Undang-Undang Kanun Jenayah Syariah Number 2, 2015, Negeri Kelantan. But it cannot be implemented because the punishments exceeded the Akta Mahkamah Syariah Bidang Kuasa Jenayah 1965, which Hadi now seeks to amend. But are these prescribed Kesalahan Jenayah Syariahs divine? Well, if they were divine, certainly there cannot be 14 different sets of divine laws. One Allah cannot set different laws in different states and countries. And if 355 was divine, how come Haji Hadi can amend it 3 times already? The proponents of 355 also says that 355 is not hudud. That 355 is to memertabatkan Mahkamah Syariah. 355 will not affect non-Muslims, and 355 will mencegah jenayah. Well, 355 is not hudud, but it facilitates hudud. Without 355, punishments of 100 lashes on penzina, 40 to 80 lashes for consuming alcohol, and 80 lashes for kazaf cannot be implemented. These are hudud punishments. 355 is a process to implement hudud punishments. And so, what if it was hudud? The spirit of the Quran must be upheld, which is to ensure justice for all. Any law that harms the life and limb of another should be rejected, as that should be left to the sole prerogative of God. It is important to remember that God's mercy and compassion are of utmost importance. Inflicting violence is a mechanism to assert power. Justice is beyond punishment. Why is it always that if it is to be an Islamic government, hudud has to be implemented? Certainly, that is not a priority to govern a state or country. Why not use conscience and reasoning instead of punishments? An educated society is a civilized society. If after all these have been established, then only can we punish those that still commit crimes. Sharia law is derived not only from the Quran, but hadith, interpretations of narrations, ijtihads, consensus, ijma ulamas, etc., etc., even qiyas and fatwas. Most of the fuqahas are males. Males with human juristic interpretations. It is open to interpretation, or rather misinterpretation. Sharia laws become intrusive and restrictive, especially towards women. Hudud has always harmed the most vulnerable in society, the poor, and never to the wealthy, the powerful, or the oppressors. Women who are pregnant out of wedlock are deemed guilty of illicit sex unless she can prove that she was raped. Otherwise, she will be lashed 100 lashes. By the way, this law is in effect already in all the 14 states. 355, if passed, will cause injustice. Okay, let's look at who would be the judges in the courts. They are humans who are fallible. They can make mistakes. The system can be abused. What happens when the system is abused? Justice cannot be served. Go to the Mahkamah Sharia and see the many, many women who have been attending court for years trying to get justice, trying to get divorce and maintenance from polygamous or absent husbands who have abandoned her and the children. If the Mahkamah Sharia can be abused, what makes us confident enough for them to be given more massive powers? Sebelum memertabatkan Mahkamah Sharia, pastikan dulu sistem keadilan dapat dilaksanakan sepenuhnya. Ianya juga mustahil untuk mengukuhkan Mahkamah Syariah sekiranya terdapat kes di mana terdapat isu hadanah anak-anak, di mana anak-anak boleh tinggal dengan kedua-dua belah ibu bapa, tak kira Muslim atau non-Muslim. Which brings me to the next point. 355 will not affect non-Muslims? Well, you are well aware of the conflicts when one parent converts to Islam. If 355 indeed precludes the non-Muslims from the Sharia courts, don't you think that would affect justice? If you can't go to the Sharia courts to lay your claims, to seek justice, how are you going to get your avenues for you to be heard? How do you subject yourself to the Sharia courts? And that in itself makes 355 violate Article 8 of the Federal Constitution, which guarantees that there shall not be any discrimination based on religion. 355 also, they say, kononnya boleh mencegah jenayah di kalangan orang Islam. The harsher the penalty, the less crimes committed. In that case, can anyone explain if Section 39B of the Dangerous Drugs Act, which carries a mandatory death by hanging sentence, has actually circumvented or deterred drug trafficking? It just proves that harshest punishments do not prevent crime. If you believe in the hereafter, let Allah be the one to punish. These laws are very much against personal freedom. Can you imagine? With 355 passed, a Muslim can no longer be allowed to give his or her opinion which is against a fatwa or whatever laws that are passed in order to control our thought process. Can you imagine a state can fine or imprison men who fail to solat Jum'at at their Qaria Masjid 3 times in a row? Where in the Quran has God ever prescribed such punishments for any of these offenses? If it isn't from God, then it is subject to scrutiny and condemnations, as these laws have no Quranic basis at all. And all are man-made. There exists no punishment for apostasy either, because there is no compulsion in religion. Who knows, the time may come when a fatwa is issued that women who do not cover their hair must be imprisoned or kept in the kitchen for 30 years. Impossible? Think about it. After all, fatwas, although man-made, are binding only in Malaysia. Instead of hudud, the government should ensure that the society has been enlightened with reasoning and conscience, equip society with a good education and sound judgment. In a civilized society, you don't need external barriers, just barriers within our akal. What's hudud if the society still lives in poverty? with no jobs, no proper infrastructure, where corrupt governments rule. Membangun negara bersama Islam? Membangun negara dengan kebijaksanaan, bukan paksaan. The Prophet had said, avoid condemning the Muslims to hudud wherever you can, because God's laws must be designed with the spirit of God's mercy, and that repentance and forgiveness is consistently urged as an alternative to punishment. Da'wah appeals to a more sensible approach, which is more humane, compassionate and merciful as a goal of Islam. So, should you vote for the Hadi motion? Choose justice, choose humanity. It's not going to make you a lesser Muslim if you voted against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Now I would like to invite Azrul to give his speech.
Thank you, Azira. Firstly, can I just ask that you all give yourselves a round of applause for coming here on this very hot Saturday afternoon and coming out. And I would like to just say it's amazing. It's amazing to see so many people from different walks of life, from so many different ethnicities, so many religions and so many cultures. We are demonstrating here the promise that was made by that gentleman over there, Tengku Abdul Rahman, not that gentleman, but the sign that he's holding, that Tengku Abdul Rahman, who promised that when he and his buddies decided to work together to form this country in terms of its independence, to gain from the British, the promise was that we would live together. And this is the promise that we need to hold our leadership to be accounted for. There is a promise to be kept. And today we are living to one of those promises, which is the freedom of speech and expression that we are here today. We are expressing our dissatisfaction with what's happening in the country today. We are concerned as Malaysians, not as Malay, Chinese, Indians and the vague dan lain-lain, but as Malaysians we are concerned. And most importantly, we are celebrating this constitutional guarantee, which is the freedom of expression and speech, which is in the Federal Constitution. So I would like to ask you, give a round of applause to our friends over there in Padang Merbok. Because just as much as we are expressing our fundamental constitutional guarantees, so are they. And they have a right to do that, even though we don't have the money, but also the huge number of nasheed groups that they are listening to. Machineries. We only have a USB with dodgy songs and
they are confused, Lord.
Well, everybody has their own opinions concerning where this country should be, and they're expressing their own. But most importantly is that we didn't need to import kids from outside of this state to bring to come to the rally. You are here on your own violation, your own free will, your own right to be here, and your concern as Malaysians, right? Ada import lah? Ada. Actually, there's people from Johor, there's people from Penang, Kuantan also here, but they were not paid, and we didn't have enough money anyway. So we would like to just thank everyone who came out of the state to come to this rally. It's amazing. I wanted to just mention to you and pick up on some of the points that Nick mentioned earlier about how this law is going to affect us all. There's too many fairy tales that have been spun about how 355 is going to affect us. And one of the many fairy tales, and I have to say to you, and I don't know if some of my politician friends are going to disown me after this, is that they are selling the story that with this amendment to Usul 355, with the 100 lashes, 100,000 denda dengan berapa 30 tahun penjara, somehow or another you boleh atasi masalah corruption, rasuah yang berleluasa dan masalah korupsi yang kian dilanda di dalam negara kita. Somehow or another it's a magic show, boleh settle semua. You know this is not true. But I wanted to talk about something that Nick mentioned just now, which is, who does this law affect? And she mentioned about vulnerable people. Vulnerable people. In almost every country where we have had hudud law, and let me tell you some of the countries that PAS has cited as successfully implemented hudud. Somalia, parts of Nigeria, Pakistan, and many, Sudan, God, and Brunei, but Brunei hasn't been cited yet, but these are failed states. Ini adalah negara yang telah gagal dalam pemerintahan mereka dan juga telah dilanda konflik yang cukup dahsyat. Dan apabila mereka mahu menunjukkan bahawa mereka telah berjaya menegakkan keadilan, do you know who they go after? They go after the weak and vulnerable. The weak and vulnerable, and very often many of them are women. Let me show you, since a lot of the past guys are saying that ini cakap kosong je, mana ada betulnya, dia tak ada semua. Let me show you an example of a real life situation. This is what has already happened in Aceh, in Indonesia, where they have had hudud implemented. Look at that. Is this the image that we want for Malaysia? No. Is this what we want to be known for around the world? No. But look who is being whipped. It says here, it says here kesalahan adalah menjual makanan ketika Ramadan. And you know, she probably didn't make a lot of money. She probably needs to sell food at that time because she needs to earn it for her family. Chances are the people who will be falling under hudud will not be the guys who live in the big bungalows in Putrajaya or TTDI, Damansara Heights, Taman Duta, Bangsa, you know, all these places where people will be insulated from hudud, and including myself, I have to say. Chances are I will probably not. But these people, the people who are in the lower income group, who are trying to earn a living, trying to survive in today's tough economic times, in the tough situation, they will dimangsakan dalam menunjukkan bahawa mereka lebih Islam daripada orang lain. Betul tak?
Betul.
They will be the ones who will have to pay for when they feel that they need to show that they are more Muslim than everybody else. Bear that in mind when we are supporting this Usul 355. Another point which Nick kacau betul, semua dah bolot, you know the point, tapi tak apa. Another point that is often raised is the fact that this law won't affect non-Muslims. Now, I don't know how many of you have bought paintbrushes recently. These days there's a sign there in the hardware shop that says semua haram. Beli kat kedai lain. Senang, because you don't know which paintbrush is with the bristles of a pig or not. So basically they've just put it, we don't want any trouble, let's just make it all haram. Easy. How many of you have gone to McDonald's recently to celebrate your birthday? If you have gone to McDonald's, in your birthday, make sure that cake dijamin halal oleh JAKIM. Because that's what it's become today, where we have to conform and to show our piety. So even the cakes that we celebrate our birthday, which has none of the business of the religious authorities, now becomes something that we have to take into consideration. How many of you eat at Ninja Joe? Burger joint sells pork burgers. Terpampang tulis kat situ, pork burgers. Yet somehow or another, a poor soul wanders in and wants to order a Ramly burger and says he got confused because it said there Ramly. Now, I'm not sure who owns the word Ramly, but I'm damn sure it's not Muslims. And this is the problem, but these are small issues, really. They're nothing compared to what this could happen. Again, this is from Aceh in Indonesia. This woman, again, it's a woman who was selling alcohol, 60 years old, Christian, whipped under hudud law. Today they may say it doesn't cover Muslims. No, sorry, they may say it doesn't cover non-Muslims. But who is going to guarantee that it doesn't cover non-Muslims ever?
No guarantee.
No guarantee. And I want to be biased, to be subjected to a harsh law, because the Federal Constitution guarantees you equal protection under the law, equal treatment under the law, and this is a guarantee that must not be broken. So, a special message, just to wrap up my few minutes of fame here, a special message to my friends who are non-Muslims, who are Malaysians, who are trying to figure out where are they in this debate. Should they even bother, because this is Islamic law, and maybe they shouldn't because it has nothing to do with you. I say to you that it affects us all. If they tell you to shut up, tell them to shut up. And show them this side. Saya ada suara, saya bayar cukai. Saya seorang rakyat Malaysia, saya menentang ketidakadilan undang-undang. Make sure you say that, and you make sure that they do not shut you up, because you are equally at stake in this country just as much as your friends and brothers and sisters who are Malays. And finally, don't worry, not wrap up already. Finally, our friends who are our members of parliament. Are they here? They're not here, yes. I read in the media, they said they were not wanting to come. Tak apalah. Kita kena hantar surat ke dia orang lah. Kita make sure suara kita kedengaran. Tapi make sure this. All of you are under a constituency. All of you have members of parliament, right? Yes. Do you know who your members of parliament are?
Yes.
Sure not. Yes. Some people never see them until Pilihan Raya lah. But you know them. I challenge you today to take a course of action after this rally is over. Find out who your MP is if you don't know them yet. Don't stalk lah, jangan jadi stalker kan. Find out their email addresses and service centre. Tapi audited lah. Yeah. Tapi you cari, make sure you know, and you meet them and say, I want you to vote no to Hadi's Usul 355. Make sure your MP votes no, and tell them that maybe our politicians or members of parliament are busy thinking about GE 14, PRU 14. They're busy thinking, strategizing, trying to figure out how to win new seats or trying to keep their seats.
How to sleep in past?
Well, I'm not judgmental. They can sleep with whoever they want.
I am a voter and I have the right to be judgmental.
Yeah, okay. But most importantly, you tell them that while you are thinking about retaining your seat in the GE14, we today here are thinking about Malaysia's future. Malaysia of our children. And you remind them that if they want our votes, vote no to Hadi's Usul 355. Betul tak?
Betul.
Tak nak Usul 355.
Tak nak.
Tak nak Usul 355.
Tak nak usul 355.
Tak nak Usul 355.
Tak nak usul 355.
Sekian, terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
perut bumi. Biar lafaz ini membelah angkasa. Hari ini kita bertuah, kita dapat
88 MPs. So UMNO by itself cannot pass this bill. If you combine UMNO with PAS has 21.
Now the other amanah sudah keluar.
Okay, correct, yes. So now it's down to 14.
Yes.
So it's 88 plus 14, that's 102. Correct? They are short of 10.
Sarawak tak akan. Yes.
We don't know. It would have been good if Andy Young would have been able to give us this assurance that the two Gerakan MPs would vote against the bill, but we'll have to wait and see. All right. So we've got UMNO plus PAS, that's 102.
Dan kita mahu mereka untuk mencontoh pemimpin mereka di dalam parti-parti yang berkenaan. Nah, ini jelas dan ini amat penting untuk mereka faham. Kita tidak mengganggu gugat kepercayaan amalan mereka ini.
Comes to mind for me is,
Penting untuk mereka faham. Kita
or is this an
tidak mengganggu gugat kepercayaan amalan mereka ini. Muktamar Malaysia atau pertama yang baru berumur 3 tahun dan kita mempunyai cawangan ke seluruh negara. Dan hari ini saya mewakili pertubuhan Tarekat ini saya mewakili pertubuhan ini melafazkan sokongan baru
Okey, seterusnya tanpa membuang masa, sama-sama kita tarik telinga kita mendengar amanat yang penting daripada Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Menteri Kanan Ustaz Datuk Haji Ahmad Yaakob, Menteri Besar Kerajaan Negeri Kelantan. Dengan segala hormat yang saya mempersilakan.